IPMNation.com.
Live from the Outpost Studios in Columbus, Ohio, you're listening to All Natural Being with Brian Brawdy. Brought to you by IPMNation.com. Get ready for the gong heard round the world.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All-Natural Being. Warning, All-Natural Being with Brian Brawdy is designed to shake your sense of self to the core.
It's full contact psychology with an empowering twist, a philosophical loofah for your soul.
For those of you not ready or comfortable releasing your inner superhuman, listener discretion is advised.
Here's your host,
Brian Brawdy.
Good evening. Boy, what a night already, huh? Good evening. Welcome. And thank you so much for stopping by. Here, where are we here? Let me go like this. Pull this around. Man, you'd think you'd have this all nailed by now, wouldn't you? All right, stand by. Thank you and welcome to the 326th episode of the number one rated show here on IPMNation.com. You're in to All Natural Being. The gong heard round the world. Broadcast as it happens here on IPMNation.com. And now multicast live on Facebook, YouTube, over on AllNaturalBeing.com. And, of course, the new Brian Brawdy app. However you come to hang with us, we're always pumped to have you. We're always live from the Transitional Radio Uplink here in Columbus, Ohio, with rebroadcast on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and SoundCloud. All the other regular suspects, if you will. Greetings wherever you are here in the Garden of the Mortals. And to the people texting me last evening and this evening saying, hey, we're listening on the phone, driving around. Glad to have you. And what a gig it is. Winning or whining, it's up to you and me. Life, it's our labyrinth. Our shot at running the table, diving the rabbit hole, as you see fit. The hell with your critics. What do they know? Well, like they're more of an expert about your unique. They're more of an expert at your personal wild at the core than you are. Time you own your primal scream, not place it in the junk drawer. Front and center, where it belongs, right on the tip of your lips. That's why we're always putting your heart's highest priority top of the list. Reinstalling and reinstating the true wit, wisdom, and I said this last night for the first time, but I love it, the true wit, wisdom, and wallop of your inner whisper. Rebooting your robust, finding your ferocious, all in time to out-brutal the brutal that is the cut and shuffle that fate can deal us on a daily basis, and to bring your own bold once and for all. But before we hit it this evening, hello to my friends here in the United States and Canada, Mexico, the UK, those in Ecuador, China, the Philippines, Brazil, India, Australia, Germany, Italy, France, Nigeria, Turkey, Japan, Singapore, Thailand, Belgium, Sweden, Israel, South Africa, Egypt, Puerto Rico, Kenya, the Netherlands, Colombia, Greece, Ireland, Peru, Poland, to those joining us from all over the globe. It's great to have you with us, and a very special shout out to Susan. I'm glad you're with us as well. And I truly am fired up today to be driving your bandwagon, to be your virtual hitchhiker, as I just said. If you're out and about on the go, to be your biggest fan, to be avidly you. But before we jump into tonight's show, question of the hour, question of every hour, why would we let anyone hijack our cognition? Why would we let anyone play us like a sock puppet, our mind like a marionette? Because the days of needlessly torturing ourselves by being someone else's tool, they're over. It's time to take life into your own hands. So what are we waiting for? Here's our opportunity to mortal up. So what do you say? Let's go kick in some doors. But before we get to the thread tonight, I like to kick around some thoughts, thinking at the tip of the spear kind of stuff, if you will. And if you've ever read the French philosopher Michel Foucault and his ideas on what he called self-writing, what I've called journal jousting, right? Or combat copy, I think I mentioned earlier on Facebook. And how I use that technique to hone my head and keep what little sanity I have left, as he would put it, to trample underfoot the machinations of the enemy, using the inner impulses of the soul, bringing them to light to combat the chop block of fate, our inner amnesia, so that we can dispel the darkness where the enemy's plots are incubated and hatched. He looked at it as our weapon in a spiritual combat, and he saw it as struggling against the agitations of our soul. He wrote about the process of withdrawing into oneself, getting in touch with oneself, living with oneself, relying on oneself, benefiting, and even enjoying oneself. All the while, he offered, dislodging the most hidden impulses from the inner recesses of our soul. I like to call it the backwaters of my brain, thus enabling, he thought, for oneself to break free of them, or as I call it, unleash your legendary, to forego being a psychological Sherpa, to any binge thinking, to strip away the plagiarized cognitions of the committee vote, and to bring your own bold. So when we talk all the time about let's go and kick in some doors, what specifically can we do? How can we get started? You know, it's easy to always talk in a very highfalutin way about putting your heart's highest priority top of your list. Primal scream front and center on your lips. To channel your wild at the core. To bring your own bold. But specifically, what are some of the steps that we could do it? So I thought I would share with you this evening, I've got stacks of them. And I mean stacks of them. Maybe you all do too. Call them journals. Just boxes and boxes and boxes of the books that I've been writing in, the blank pages that I've been using to help me through everything that's been going on in my life. Well, especially for the last 30 years now since my father's suicide. And that's why I call it journal jousting or combat copy. Because there's been times when I've been writing in these journals. There's been times when I've been writing, and sometimes they're blank pieces of paper. Now, to be honest with you, in this day and age, it can be recording into my phone. It can be recording into my iPad, but I'll write stuff down on 3x5 cards. I'll write it down. Some of my journaling looks like this. There you go. That's a mouse. The mouse is on the loose. Right? Some of it is a back of envelopes. I'll write it down on anywhere that I can find a blank piece to go ahead, and as Foucault says, to dispel the inner recesses of the soul, the backwaters of my brain, the binge thinking that I can subject myself to from time to time. And any opportunity that I have to be able to jot that down, there seems to be a terribly medicinal quality. And I can tell you before, I used all the electronic stuff, or even at times now, when I take that pen, I can get so, he called them agitations. I can get so agitated, and especially after my father's suicide. I can remember, looking back at those notebooks, and I was just digging the pen, right? There'd be ink in it, but I'd be digging through the paper. I'd be so mad. They'd be stained with tears. They'd be stained, honest to goodness, in some cases, sweat. And I'd just be writing, how could you? And I'd be writing, and it was almost just like I was just vomiting out the verse on paper. And I think in after reading Foucault, you get to the point where you realize that the medicinal quality in that is that you get some of these things out into the light of day. You're no longer ashamed by them. You're no longer troubled by them. You can see them there on the plain page. People say to me, well, how do you get over writer's block? I've never sat down. I've never been confronted by a blank piece of paper that I didn't have something to put on. Because if it's not longing just to explode out of me, I never grab a pen. I never record it. I never think about putting it down. And maybe that's the beginning of placing our heart's highest priority top of the list. Maybe you have an example of journaling, of combat copy, where you go up against your own cognition and sometimes you just go, that's it. I've had enough. I've had enough. Let's go ahead and have this out right now. And then you feel free to put down whatever you want. Now, I've also done some in the past where, you're upset about something. You write a letter to a person, and then you give yourself permission when you get in the very beginning to realize you're never, right? You're never going to send that anywhere, right? So you can put down almost anything that you want because, you think, how many times can you turn down the volume on one phone? I can't get it to read a text, but it'll give me all the volume I want, right? But have you ever done that? Where you go, okay, I got to get this out of me. Like, it's just like a poison inside of me. So I got to go ahead and spit it out. I got to go ahead and just vomit out this verse so I can get rid of it, right? Like my own exorcism, an exorcism of the alphabet, of the words. But then you know that you're going to write these letters. You're never going to send it to the person or to the target or anything. So you can burn them, you can shred them, you can do whatever you want to them. But that there's a real lifting off of your shoulders. And I can tell you, and looking through some of the books as I was thinking about this earlier today when I wrote the Facebook post, I can tell you that a part of the things that I wrote in the aftermath to my father, who had already jumped. And look, here's the thing about combat copy. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be grammatically correct. It doesn't have to be any of those things. It just has to be the passion that's on the inside of you. So that you can communicate that out in the light of day, and then maybe you go, you know what? I'm not as ashamed of that as I thought I was. Or maybe just seeing it out on paper has taken some of its energy from me. But I love when Foucault called it just, in terms of being, spiritual combat. And he wrote a little more as the enemy. I believed he thought that it was Satan. But for me, it's fate. Or you could call it Satan. Anything that's going to chop block your attempt to put your heart's highest priority top of your list. That's the enemy. Anything that keeps it trapped in the recesses of your soul or the backwaters of your brain, as I look at it. So that's what we wanted to talk about tonight. And maybe you have an example of journaling. Maybe you have an example of combat copy where you just got to get it out of you to hone your head, to save what little sanity you might have in any particular moment of time. And to get it out of you so that it no longer exercises control over you. All right, let's hop in the thread real quick. Rita, good evening. Candace, good evening. Nice to see you. Another great day. I'm glad to hear it, Rita. Henry, how are you? Nice to see you, sir. Darren, hello. Thank you so much, Darren, for joining us. Your clock isn't running. Oh, you know what? You're right, Candace, it isn't. All right, so someone keep me. Oh, that's right. You know what is, though? Look at this one. This button I remembered to hit. All right, so I'll have to go back and forth time to time. Thanks, Candace. My clock isn't running. Boy, that's a metaphor for the show. Yeah, I'm not playing with a full deck, but we know that maybe the show will last more than an hour. Darren, that is very nice of you. Thank you. Right? Like anyone would want to put up with me for an hour. Although we have been talking, I have to tell you, my good friend Wayne Noel sent me an audio clip of the beginning of Gilligan's Island, a 3-hour tour, and you hear the light and everything else, because we've been talking about going to a 3-hour show, and maybe, Darren, this is my way of sneaking it in. I won't tell anyone. I'll go, oh, well, at least a 2-hour show tonight. I got to start once the clock, I'll start all over again. Thank you very much, Darren. Wayne, I just was talking about you. Hello, nice to see you. Thank you. As always, thank you for everything. Lee, thank you so very much. Lee, I thought about you a lot today when I wanted to put down, good evening to you, sir, as well. I wanted to put down this little thing. Philip, good evening as well. Thank you for joining us here at All Natural Being. I wanted to put down this concept of combat copy. Oh, shoot, you have another. I know, Candace, right? Like you're thinking, why? How many props can Brian have? Well, thanks to Lee Rowley and the good folks at Sales Copy Academy, I have 2 clocks. There you go. So 46. Yeah, I just didn't think to hit the remote. All right. There's so much that goes on here. Right before we get ready to go in this evening, the software had a glitch. Let's say, this time, honest to goodness, I would tell you if it was me this evening, it just wasn't going right. So there you go. We're talking this evening, as I said, I was thinking about Lee today, who is just an expert copywriter. And this isn't copy like that, where Lee might look at this copy and go, Brian, that grammatically barely makes sense. Most of the words aren't even spelled right. I can barely read your handwriting. Now, I think in terms of this journaling, the benefit for me, and maybe you give me a call, 833-462-3968, 833-GO-BU. I guess you could pound away at the keyboard, right? If you were going to take your laptop and just, I guess you could get aggressive enough in doing that. Thank you, Wayne. I know you're watching all the time. Thank you very much. And I don't mean watching the show. He's always, that was an evil laugh. Boy, don't I know it. I was journaling when I was first pregnant to document the wonderfulness. Very nice. Good for you. And we could absolutely do that because I suspect Sarah the Foucault, although he was talking about spiritual combat with the enemy, the chop blocking, I absolutely believe that you could do the same thing for something important, something spiritual important, because it's still combat. And maybe it's journaling to put your heart's highest priority top of your list. That's a great point. It just doesn't always have to be that negative. Though in the very beginning, for me, it was absolutely that kind of it was combat copy, right? It was jousting with my journal. It was everything that I wanted to say, everything that I wanted to do, everything that I wanted to bring to that particular moment in all of time. And I have pages. Good evening, Jamie. Thank you for joining us here on All Natural Being. I have pages where it's just dripped in tears. I have pages, as I said, where the pen was carving through the paper. I have pages where I ran out of ink in a pen, where I'd been doing it for so long. I ran out of ink in a pen, and I grabbed apparently a different colored pen. In some cases, I grabbed a pencil in one of the journals, and it had gone ink, and then, I could see the ink start to fade, and then all of a sudden, at the next line, there was a pencil. Read on. It was horrid. Oh, sorry, my friend. I still can't get, like I said, Sarah, the volume works fine on this phone, but I can't get down. Sorry. Well, okay. Well, I wanted to think it was something good. I've met your son, so I can't imagine it could be, ultimately long-term. In the end, it turned out great. Hi, Jamie, to you as well. Thank you for joining us here on All Natural Being. And all we're talking about tonight is combat copy. All we're talking about tonight is jousting with the journal, so that either the good and the bad, you can get your heart's highest priority out on paper. And maybe there's something where you go, hey, I need to know that it doesn't look that bad. Or, hey, maybe I need to know that if I follow these steps, I really can pull this off. But I think combat copy is giving yourself permission to be you, and no one else will see it. Combat copy is giving yourself permission to go ahead and say what you really feel, not worried about whether it's going to be vetoed, but really hone your head to this particular moment in all of time. Yes, he did. It turned out great, Sarah. John, good evening. Thank you for joining us here on All Natural Being. We're talking about combat copy and the good and the bad of it, but what it takes to get your heart's highest priority now. Candace, you got me looking at the clock. All right, 42. Combat copy, what it takes to put your heart's highest priority top of your list. And maybe sometimes that's what it takes, seeing it on paper, and you go, wow, it doesn't seem all that formidable. When I get it out of me and I put it down on paper, it doesn't seem all that bad. Hey to you as well, brother. Nice to see you, John. Right? And then even in some of our struggles, when we go, okay, great, that's just going to be way too much. That's going to be way too difficult for me to achieve. If you put it down on paper, maybe it's just a conglomeration of 20-minute victories. What if I do this right now for the next 20 minutes? That puts me in the position to do this right now for the next 20 minutes. And then that'll put me in a position, right? The labyrinth of life, the ups, the downs, the left, the right, the pivots, the swerves, all cul-de-sacs, no dead ends, admittedly some blind alleys, but you get where I'm going with this. As Henry says, brilliant point. It allows you to really take a solid look at yourself from a different point of view. Just don't vomit, please. I know. Yeah, it can. Well, can I tell you this, just in the interest of absolutely before disclosure, before we open up the phone lines, 833-462-GO-BE-YOU. I'm sorry, GO-BE-YOU. 83. Yeah. There's more than a clock that's just not working tonight. That was the shunt talking. 833-462-3968. 833-GO-BE-YOU. I can tell you that some of the times in this combat copy, some of the times at jousting with my journal, I would look up in the mirror and I can recall 2 times, although some 30 years ago now, I can recall 2 times that it didn't even look like me in the mirror. I was so mad. I was so just enveloped in what I was writing. I looked up, I saw my reflection in the mirror. It didn't even look like me. That's what I'm talking about. Lee says, some of the most powerful stories in history were originally private journals. I believe that. Rita says, all that stuff is so much better out than in. Absolutely agreed. So that's what I wanted to talk about tonight. 833-462-3968, 833-GO-BU. How has it been for you in terms of your journaling? You know, do you have a notebook? Do you have, dear diary. That was the word I was trying to think of earlier. Do you have a diary that you put things in? I remember when you were a little kid, some of the diaries come with a lock, right? And that's the premise that we're talking about. As Rita says, some of that stuff just can't be made up. And I think, Rita, to be honest, I think Foucault would say that's because the stuff that can't be made up comes from the inner recesses of your soul, right? It comes from that spiritual combat where the enemy incubates and lays in wait to derail you from your destiny. And as Foucault, I said, believed it was Satan. Henry would probably say more about the ego. Well, I would call it more fate. But the enemy is anything that inculcates a sense of amnesia in us. Anything that says, oh, you know what I mean? Oh, here's what you're all about. But just ignore that. Let's not go that way. All right, let's take a quick call. Good evening. Thank you for calling All Natural Being. Who's this?
Good evening, Brian. This is Henry. How are you, sir?
Good. Henry, how are you, sir?
Doing great, doing great.
Good. We're talking about combat copy tonight. But you made a very valid point when you said earlier that it allows you to really take a solid look at yourself from a different point of view.
It gives you a chance to filter, I think. We have all sorts of reasons of why we have to get things down, from feeling guilty or feeling depressed or we're just angry. Mm-hmm. And so it gives us an opportunity to lay things down and then take a really good look at it and assess, okay, this was said, and I was in this kind of a condition. This is what I was dealing with. And it gives us a great chance to filter, and not so much to make corrections,
right,
I think, but to get a better understanding of us in those moods, in those positions, when denial becomes a really great tool. Mm-hmm. And so I really believe that that's really where we go with this, is writing things down and putting them down. I mean, when I'm writing and I post stuff on Facebook, and that's very much what I've done, is as I've put my thoughts are down, and then I get a chance to sit here and look at them and really, really say, okay, who was I at the time I wrote this?
Sure. That's a very valid point. You could do it on social media. You could do it on Facebook. You could do it on Twitter and on LinkedIn. You could do it as Henry does on SoundCloud or YouTube. And then, in addition to that, there are some times, though, and Henry, I think you would agree, there are some times that some of the things you're working on, you would just never say in public, at least in its initial stages, right? And I can tell you the things that I thought about, the things that I felt about my father's suicide when I first started this process, I wouldn't say to another human being ever again. Some of the anger, some of the sense of guilt that I felt, some of the things that I thought he had unfairly shouldered me with, in the way he did it, in the way he set up the aftermath, the way he knew I would find out. I would never say those things again. I would never let anyone see that journal. So I would agree with you, there's absolutely a filter. And then prior to that, or maybe alongside of it, some of it is filtered so you can get a chance of seeing what you think. And another is just no holds barred. Not a filter in the world, because I knew, and I remember someone saying, oh, did you ever think about writing it and setting it on fire? And I go, no, I'm Irish, right? Irish luck. Don't believe the hype. I'd go to set the paper on fire and set the curtains. I'd bring the kitchen down with it. So for me, it was good enough just to shred, right? Or, I get to use a sound effect. Henry, how about this one? Right? You can write it and flush it right down the toilet. See?
There you go.
There's another good one. There's another good one. So, yes, I would agree. It's a filter. And then at other times, it's just sheer energy, right? It's just getting it out of you. As Rita said, it's better out of you than in you. And that's what I want to talk about tonight. And people that have examples of it that, could say, here was something that I was going through, and it helped me, good or bad, right? As I said, Henry, it could be wanting to achieve a goal. And you go, oh, I never could do that. We'll go, whoa, wait a minute. What if we just put down little baby steps, right? Little transitional phases, if you will, little transitional shifts that if you accomplished one, which would lead to another and another and another and another and another, right? You could do it. You could also do it in a good way.
Yes, absolutely. I remember having had my back surgery, all those years ago from breaking my back when I was in the military, and being told, well, you're never going to walk again. That just get yourself used to it. It was just a tough time to go through and say, wow, I'm 23 years old, and this is going to be it as far as being able to just be who I was, and coming to an assessment that, okay, you're going to have to make some changes. And so a lot of that I wrote down, and the anger,
sure,
frustration I felt that everybody's for giving up on me, saying,
sure,
I'm not going to do this. I'm just simply not going to accept this. And then being called stupid for that, you're living a dream. There's just no way. Well,
sure,
I'm still not in that wheelchair. I'm still walking around.
Sure.
Not out of anything other than pure defiance.
Sure.
But to go back through that years later, to really see who I am, who I was at the time,
sure,
first of all, and come to terms with that person person is in all of us. We are there. That anger is there, and the frustration is there, and you see it every day of our lives in the comments from television, the state of the world that it's in. You can see it's all there. All of our emotions are in it, and right out there in the universe for the universe to watch. And it's accepting it and realizing we are who that person was. It's okay. It is okay to be that person.
Sure.
It's just we have to learn it. So long as we're learning from everything that we're doing, then yes, I think it is some of the best therapy in the world to really learn who you really are and what your capabilities really are.
And it evolves. We were kicking around the term today, egolution. You know what I mean? Like, what happens to the ego as it goes through its stages? Rita says, the universe always hears what you say. Thoughts and words are powerful. And I would add to that, Rita, that sometimes, because we now know it's a full 7 to 10 seconds, that your mind, they'll watch your mind in any of the machines that they've loaded me into over the last 3 years, right? They'll watch your mind in these fMRIs, and a full 7 to 10 seconds before you think to utter the word, before you're conscious of that train of thought, your brain is already moving. Those neurons are already communicating. So I would say not only does the universe always hear what you have to say, it could very well be the universe. It could very well be in that particular moment in all of time when I talk about the fingerprints of providence. It could very well be the universe telling you what to say. And then I think, Henry, when you look at all the, let me just say this. And again, we don't want this to be a political, let me just say, I don't want it to be a political show. But Maxine Waters, I think, could use a little bit of time journaling. Some of these people that, and I just want to take it out on Maxine Sleewell from California. Some of these people that just get so worked up in the media. Oh, speaking of getting worked up, let me say, if she's here in the thread, if not, let me wish happy birthday to Patricia Costello. Patricia, and if Gabriel is listening in, Dana, if you and Gabriel are here, let me say happy birthday to Gabriel as well. Candace says, I write a lot and I have letters with me that I never say now. I know that sounds weird. I write a lot and I have letters with my will that I never say now. I know that sounds weird, but no, I don't think it sounds weird at all. I've written letters, especially pre-surgery, and I'm glad to see, Henry, as I'm sure you and everyone else is, I'm glad to see the smile on Susan's face and the picture that she posted having come out of a you could only say a fairly harrowing time, right?
Yes.
So it was great to see her smile. Yeah, absolutely. Jamie says, someone told me not long ago to take a look at a picture of myself at the age of 3 and 4 years old and nurture. I could see that, Jamie. I could see that, right? That's that inner child. My grandfather used to, Henry, you've seen them, those little, they're about the size of bumper stickers, but he would write quotes. And I have them hanging up all over the place. I have hundreds of them that my grandfather left behind. And one of the quotes, and I think this speaks to what Jamie was just saying, one of the quotes says, would the young child you were be proud of the person you've become? And I think exactly the quote was, would the young boy you were be proud of the man that you become, right? But obviously it goes both ways. So, Jamie, I kind of think that's along those same lines. Looking back to that young person, would they be proud of where you are? The same thing, Henry?
No, yeah, absolutely. And I think what Rita mentions, too, about being friends with your inner child. I think if you can't love the child that's been within you your entire life, and most of us have forgotten that we even have that inner child, or we won't admit we have that inner child. But you really have to really be friends with that inner child, because it is part of us. Every experience we have experienced is part of our makeup of who we are, and so we have to really be friends with our stuff and with our past when you look at it. And that's why I feel so bad when people feel nothing but guilt for their past and for what they've done. I mean, the past is what made you who you are today, and there's nothing in the world to be feel guilty about, to be guilty about. It's to cherish and to grow up and to learn from it and keep moving on. But we end up stuck in a way in this vicious circle of shoulda, woulda, coulda.
Well, for me, I think the wild at the core, when I talk about your all-natural being, when I talk about the wit and wisdom and wallop of your inner whisper, I think to quote from the Bible, it says, you have to be like a child in order to get through the gates of the kingdom of heaven, right? All world religions talk about the beauty of being a child, and I think that's pre-baggage. That's pre-shellac. That's pre-varnish. That's the natural grain that everyone wants when they go to a garage sale or an antique sale, and they go, "Oh, I'll go home and strip all that gunk off and look at the natural grain that's underneath years of buildup." I think that's what they're talking about in the Christian Bible. I think that's what they say when you've got to be like a child before you can enter the kingdom of heaven, because you've got to be void. What did you call it the other night? I don't know if it was on air, another one of our conversations, Henry. Did you call it you have to have a hole in your rucksack? Did you say that on air?
A hole in your gunny sack, yes.
A hole in your gunny sack, right? To let all this crap drain away. And I think that's a part of being a friend with your inner child, is like the inner child's been pulling for you all along. The inner child's been the one. As traumatizing as it must have been for some of us at certain stages, as traumatizing as it must have been, the inner child's been pulling for you all along. You just didn't realize you were going to be you were going to turn out to be a baggage handler. It didn't realize you were going to turn out to be a bellman, right? A Sherpa for everyone else's stuff. But no, I absolutely agree. Darren says, what if by chance...
I think Darren brings up a great point on what if by chance a person doesn't want to remember their childhood. That is a tough segment to be in, because there are elements in everyone's childhood where they wish they could forget, or that things just didn't go the way they were, and you deal with people that have been abused, children that have been abused, and have grown up just absolutely perfect and have been fine. They understand what happened. In fact, they've become artists and musicians that put their heart on their sleeve to describe how abusive their life was in their household. And I think there are times when we don't want to deal with it, but it's not the entire childhood. That's what we're remembering of the childhood, and we have to remember all of those elements in order to get through that. And part of keeping the scars from forming is the assimilation of all that information and that data.
Sure.
It's hard. I remember holding out and holding a lot of guilt and stuff as I grew up, because I was at tough odds with my dad.
Sure.
And so it kind of went away as I realized that wasn't who I was.
Sure.
That I was just angry, and finally understanding why I was angry. And then I could come to terms with it. And then all of a sudden I realized all the things that my dad was saying were pretty powerful, actually.
Sure. And then you have to look at it. And let me just say quickly where Candace says, and Darren, Darren, I agree. Some childhoods have to let it go. I agree. Some childhoods have to let it go. And, for me, it all started, and let me say to everyone in the thread, to Sarah, to Denise, to John, I absolutely cannot. When it says see more, I can't I hit the see more button, and all it does is these damn emojis pop up. So I can't, when you send a really long text. So that's why I was glad for Sarah to see, is it working? Denise says hers isn't working either. You know what I mean? So I don't know what that's all about. So I apologize, but I can't. Shorter comments is key, I guess. Maybe so, Sarah. But I can't see them either. And then, Henry, I will return just for Darren and Candace's sake. Some kids had no nurturing, and only because it's been popular in the news today. It's been something that's been on my mind for years. But my to have been the target, let's say, of a slap and tickle campaign by a Catholic priest when I was a very, very young boy. When people say now, well, why did you go into martial arts? Why did you become a police officer? Why did you become this? Why did you become that? And, you know, why is it that those things materialize the way they did? Shane says, I can't see it either. Uninstalled, reinstalled Facebook on my phone, still can't get it to work. So, all right, guys, it's not just me, which I guess I feel good, but I'd love to see other people's comments. So if you could send a couple of them in a row, that would be great. But for me, Henry, it all goes back to, you know, wanting to defend the little boy that I wasn't in a position to defend at the hands of the very priest that they sent me to in order to deal with being from an abusive, just from being from a tough family in terms of having an alcoholic father. So then they packed me up, they sent me to the priest, and it wasn't a smooth ride there either. So I think for me, when people say your inner child, well, I go back even before that, and which is why I've developed that theory that you can't help being targeted, but you can damn well bring the counterpunch. And I think to Darren's point and to Candace's point, you know, some childhoods you let go, and I did, right? Because it wasn't going to define who I was. And I saw something last week where a victim, you know, I understand if that's how you feel, but a victim said, "Oh, it just killed my soul." Well, I'm not allowed to say that on air, but I can say merde. Since I went with Michel Foucault, I can say that word in French, merde. Oh, I'm just not gonna stand for that bull merde, right? Because it goes back pre-abuse, right? I think. And I'm sorry if the audio is cutting in and out. We've got a strong signal here, it says. But you know what, Rita? Who knows? And I was talking to Denise here in the thread. I've been thinking about her all day long because they live just north of the projected path of Florence. And I'm wondering if we're going to have trouble with the audio as that storm moves onshore and starts to make it a little more west. I'm wondering if we're going to continue to have any kind of trouble with that. But I have a signal here, so it doesn't seem like I can do much to help the audio cutting in and out. So let me apologize for that. Henry, what do you think about that? There's got to be a time when we talk about the wounded inner child, we just got to get back to pre-wound, right? Yes. We just get back to the inner child. What did someone say to me? What did your face look like before your parents met? I think was a question I was asked one time, right? Who were you before your parents got together? And is that not what we're talking about? That's that's embracing, that's the inner child we're talking about, not the 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 9 or 10 or 11-year-old that may have been victimized by circumstance, but that pre-birth child. Right. Well, and you got to remember that spark that we get that actually creates the life that we have, that places us in this spacesuit that we wear, that is our essence. You know, is from that moment of conception. That's the spark, and that's when we become who we are, because that's when those decisions get made. When we talked the other night about the odds of us being here, that is the moment that we defy all the odds. It's right there when the conception occurs, and it's everything that goes on from that moment affects us. Sure. From the household that the mom and dad came from, how they were raised, to their health practices, what the relationship is, the music they listen to, the way that they nurture you while you're forming. All of that goes into us. We are part of all of that. Sure.
And
or it's a part of us.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, and I think you're right. I think that's that pre-birth emphasis and experiences that we can't remember, but are there. Some people do remember them, but that's what we're trying to get back to is before at the spark. If we could go back to that spark where totally non-contaminated, here it is. This is the pure essence,
pristine,
and move back then. Yes, absolutely pristine.
Yep. And I think for me, that's when we talk about wild at the core. You talked about, we're a byproduct of our parents. Well, technically, you and I, Henry, are byproducts of our great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather and the relationship with our great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandmother. So, Absolutely. Good Lord, if we talked about the other night, the chances of anyone being here, the bright side is you're terribly unique. What is it, 1 to the 10 times 2,700,000th power? Right? Yeah. So you're terribly unique, but that's a lot of baggage too, right? James Joyce says there are nets flung at birth to hold the soul back from flight. I think he said that in Finnegan's Wake. And Rousseau talks about being tattooed in the cradle of your grave. Yes. Wordsworth talks about, coming here with visions of glory, trailing the clouds, given all the materials to build a palace, and at length the young person decides to build, or the middle-aged person, or the person going through the midlife crisis or the quarter-life crisis, they cave and decide, he says, they decide to build a woodshed.
Yep.
So it's all that baggage that comes from 1 to the 10 times 2,700,000th zeros. All the baggage, all that goes into one little child, and it's a wonder any of us. It's given what you just said, Henry. It's a wonder any of us can smile.
That's right.
Good golly.
And that's what it is. And I think Candace brings up a great point. Says that people have to learn how to heal themselves, and it's absolutely true. I mean, and you heal yourself by stripping away all of this stuff that's not us, that we've adopted or we took on, because we felt bad for somebody, so we took on their unhappiness, or we took on their guilt, or we took on this sympathy. We do this to ourselves. And so, yes, once you can start stripping away all of the stuff, all of the non-us stuff, then we start to get down to the us stuff that we actually can work with. And that is part of that healing process. Yes, we have to deal with it. We have to assimilate it. We have to understand it and realize this is who we are. This is why we react the way we do. This is why we think the way we do.
And Candace and Darren, I would say that in addition to that, a part of wanting to heal ourselves, as Rita said, and Candace is right, crappy parents don't change, but we can. We can't help that we were targeted, but we can help the counterpunch. And I can remember 30 years ago being called to identify my father's body, and I can remember just the absolute violence coming out of me. So I would never presuppose to know what another person's childhood was like. But I will tell you, had I not spent those weeks, Sarah says, you are here where you are meant to be. Darren says, I did, and I refused to raise my girls in fear, as I refused to raise my children in fear as well, Darren. Absolutely. And for me, Henry, it was just, had I not had that time where I spent a solid week, right, in all of those journals, dealing with my own thoughts of suicide, dealing with all the anger, dealing with just all of it, that I understand that some people can't see, or understand that some people don't want to go back, or say that, it's just, let an old dog lie, or that kind of thing. But for me, there was a therapeutic, there was a medicinal, there was an absolute blessing to have been able to target that paper, to have combat copy, to have journal jousting, because it was directed at the pain within me. And one of the things that I found is that targeting that pain, making it come out and see me on paper, I was convinced. And everyone will go, oh, yeah, well, we knew Brian was nuts before now. But when I looked in the mirror, I was convinced I could see the devil in my face. I was convinced that I had become that evil, because I was like, this is it. I don't leave. And I remember I lived on Irving Park. I remember when it became the most pronounced for me I remember where I was when I resigned from the police department and I moved to Los Angeles, and shortly after that moved to Chicago. I remember where I was, where it was like, I was afraid to be alone with myself in that moment because I was convinced I was not going to leave that room. I had a box of pens. I had notebooks stacked to the ceiling. I have the little black and white things that we used to take to college, the college notebooks. You know the ones I'm talking about. Yeah, composition books. Hold on. I got stacks of them, right? I got the composition books. That's exactly what it's called, composition book. And I refused to leave until I had performed my own exorcism, if you will, right? I wanted to exorcise that stuff out of me. I wanted to get the vitriol out of me. And that's why I said earlier, I think some of the people that we see in the news, they could spend a good bit of time working on their journal. Probably be a little more peaceful place if we all spend some time doing it. What do you think, Henry?
Absolutely true. If even if it's not writing it down, if it's at least facing it. I mean, we have two options when we are injured. Mm-hmm. We can heal or we can scar. If we heal, then we deal with it and we move on and we can go further. If we scar, we have a reminder for the rest of our lives of why we are the way we are.
Right.
And that's exactly what the journaling does. And like I said, whether you do it as a voice recording or you just sit there and look in the mirror and talk to that person that's looking back at you, it doesn't matter how you journal. It's just getting it out. And that keeps the scars at bay. We don't have to scar. We don't have to become rough and tough, and we don't have to get even and become the abuser like we were abused. That's the difference between scarring and carrying it on, or healing and allowing it to dissipate and go on and end with you.
Well, I have to tell you, Henry, one of the reasons when people would say to me, well, why did you never bring it up? Why did you never go after the priest? It's not like I didn't know his name. It's not like I didn't see when he was arrested in the paper, oddly enough, for doing damn near the same thing, right? It's not like I know that. It's just that I refused from a very, very early age to have anyone exercise that control over me. When I talk about why let your mind be played like a marionette, when I talk about why be played like a sock puppet, I'm not screwing around. I refused early on to have any type of anger towards that individual, right? And go, because I'm not going to be controlled, and I'm not going to be labeled, and I'm not going to be scarred in that way. At that point, yes, I was targeted, but it's up to me to figure out what the counterpunch was going to be. And it just breaks my heart to see victims and other people that, and some, as I say all the time, there are people that suffer a lot worse than I did in terms of brain tumors. There are people that suffered a lot worse than I did in a ton of things that happened to me in my life. But for me, in that moment, I decided I just wasn't going to be, I wasn't going to paint myself as a victim. John says, video journal. That's a great idea, John. That's a great idea. Video journal. Look at that, Henry. Yeah, but then again, you got to worry a little bit if anyone ever finds that video, right?
Yeah.
I will. Let me say this. I do wish the last time that I had my biggest bout of amnesia, where clearly, Henry, I forgot just everything. And I said to my oldest son and daughter, could you have turned your cell phone on? I mean, just as a human mind, wouldn't you love to see a video of yourself when your mind totally checked out? Wow. Like, if you had no clue, right? And I got this flashy little bracelet out of that deal, right? With my name and telephone number and where to return. It's like a dog tag, right? It's like a dog collar. Well, if you find Brian roaming the streets, please bring him back to this address, right? But I would love to have a video journal, John, as you say that. I would love to have seen, what did my eyes look like? Because I'll tell you, Henry, when I started in that journal and I looked up in the mirror, I was convinced I wasn't alone. And when people say, oh, well, have you ever heard of exorcisms? Or you had this or that? Well, I don't have to hear about them. I was absolutely convinced that the evil I called out was front and center. It wasn't standing alongside of me, right? I didn't have, it wasn't like this, Henry. People go, what did he look like? It looked like me with just a crappy look on my face. It looked like me with just fire in my eyes. And it came because I decided to subject myself to combat copy, to jousting with a journal. And my line in the sand was I wasn't leaving until I had gotten it all out on paper. So I hope other people can hear that and go, hey, you know what? I think I should try that sometime. Henry, what do you think?
I agree, and I like it, and it is great therapy. And I know with what you have gone through in your life, you had the opportunity many, many times to scar, and you chose not to. And I think that is a wonderful way to be. It really is. And to know you personally, to understand that you really do have this ability to look at life differently from many people, where the reactions you take are well thought out, well planned. You don't have that knee jerk reaction. You are quite capable of it, but you have chosen to say, no, I'm not going to scar. I'm not going to do something that creates a scar. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to heal this, and I admire that.
Thank you.
You all could take lessons from that.
Thank you very much. And I will tell you, it's for me, it's about, like people say, well, how'd you get over having road rage? Get over having road rage. Some of the stuff I see, it's all I can do, from pulling up alongside of someone, putting the car in park, and pulling them out through the driver's window, right? How do you get over road rage? Well, you know what? I just don't drive anywhere anymore. It's like, well, I see some stuff with people behind the wheel of the car. I saw a person the other day, and I'm not mansplaining, so I won't tell you the sex of this particular person, but this person was putting mascara on, eating a breakfast sandwich, driving with his or her, could have been, never know, right? Could be in Canada, could be a they, a them, a that, whatever is politically correct in Canada now, right? But driving down the road, driving with their arms, eating a breakfast sandwich, putting on mascara.
Oh, God.
Right? And you look at that and you go, oh, I don't know how. It was an accident. No, it wasn't an accident, needle nits. You weren't paying attention to anything. Oh, it was an accident. I rear-ended. That car stopped suddenly in front of me. It had been stopped for an hour and a half. There was a school bus. You don't even slam on the brakes. You hit the back of the car at 80 miles an hour. Oh, I was in an accident. Really? Oh, yeah, I'm ready to drag you right out of the passenger side, right? So people go, oh, well, how did you get to that point? I didn't get to any point, right? I just know where to pick my battles. And at the end of the day, just give myself credit for trying, right? Because just give myself credit for trying. Mitzi, hi to you as well. Sorry I'm late. What's the topic? We're talking about combat copy, journal jousting. We're talking about either the good, as Sarah reminded me. It could be good, as Henry said. Might be good, might be bad. But just to get the inner recesses of your soul that Foucault spoke of. I call them the backwaters of your brain. But just get it out on paper and see, does it have the power to move you? Is it something you can be passionate about? Or are you going to kick the crap out of it by putting it down on paper and going, welcome to the jungle? You think it's a jungle out there? You ought to see the jungle in my mind. But in that moment, you put it down on paper and go, let's go. You and me, right now. Here's your trophy. Take me home and put me on your mantle. And you write it and you get it out of you. And then you walk away and you wipe the drool off your lips and you smile. Henry?
That's right.
Was it Maxine? No.
Was it Maxine?
No,
I
it wasn't.
love that.
No, it wasn't Maxine. And see, people will say right now that I'm not even, no, it was not Maxine. This is for Joseph Haggerty, right? No, it wasn't. But, right, come on. Everyone is so worked up. Everyone. I just think maybe that's what we should do. What the world needs now is love, or what the world needs is a hug. No, I think you need a good ink pen and what did Henry call them? You know, the combo books, comp book, right? You need a good ink pen and a comp book. And then, you know, wherever papers present themselves, you can throw it right in. And I think that's what we need, Henry, so that some of this anger, we could just vent it, right? Mm-hmm. Right? It gets too hot in your house in the wintertime, you vent. You know, the summertime, you open the windows, you vent some of that smell. You cooked fish for dinner, it stinks to high heavens. You open the window, you vent. That's what we're talking about. right? Oh, what was that? Oh, it was a gefilte fish. Oh, was it really? It stinks. Yeah, you think so? Yes, I do, really. Yeah, I think I'll sit on the front porch, right? But no, you open the windows, you vent, you get it out. I think that's what you and I are talking about with journaling. Combat copy
Exactly.
as it may be.
And it's funny. People do bring up, about the writer's block. I love that. That's always great. And I try to explain. I don't get writer's block.
Right.
I either want to write or I don't want to write. It's just, that's really what it is.
Right.
And if I want to write, I write. And sometimes I start off going, I really have no clue what the heck I want to write about.
Right.
And I'll write it down.
Right.
And all of a sudden the flow goes. So, that's it. So many times, well, I can't write. Well, then record or video. I love the video idea. Stand there and stare at yourself in the camera.
Yeah.
I look like the deer in the headlights, and that's always a great picture for me.
Henry, can you see the thread? Candace says, "Let me know when you're on the road. I'll stay home." I got to tell you, Candace, to be truthful, every time Ashley goes, "Do you want to drive?" Hell no. Drive? I love being chauffeured. I got to tell you, just between us, not that it needs to get back to anyone here, but I love the amnesia. You know what? It's like, well, yeah, no, I think you should drive. Oh, I don't want to run the risk of getting an hour away and not knowing how to get back. Oh, I don't want to run the risk of going to the library and not remembering where I parked the car. I mean, it's tough enough now when I come out, right? To talk about car accidents, someone rear-ended Ashley not too long ago. So we had a rental car while they fixed the other car. You know where I'm talking about, Henry. I come out of Meyer. I'm hitting the key fob. I go, hey, I got amnesia. Could somebody cut me a break? I don't remember what a rental car looks like. I can barely remember the color. Right? So I come out, you know me, I have got my half-gallon size jug of drink. When I come out, I'm hitting the beep, 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 beep. No. I've walked up to the wrong car before. So I love this amnesia thing. I go, no, yeah, you better drive me. I'll just strap in, right? Because then I can text while someone else is driving. I can play on the phone. I plug right into the USB charge port. Drive. Who wants to drive anymore? Chauffeuring is the greatest gig. If you can afford Uber or Lyft, right, or a taxi cab, I guess you could do that. But I love being chauffeured. Just sorry, I got sidetracked there. Sorry, that's the shunt talking, right? Candace, let me know when you're on the road. I'll stay home. Hysterical. All right, Henry. I know that we are busy working with Wayne, who's just doing a terrific job getting the transitional. I can't wait for everyone else to see what I've been able to see even so far. But the transitional radio website up. I know you're working on Let Her Drive, Please. I do Candace all the time. I climbed right into the wrong car once. I will tell you, Mitzi, the other day, I went up and tried to stick my key, and then I go, I don't drink Starbucks coffee. When did I put a Starbucks in the thing? Hi, Kathy. Welcome to All Natural Being. I don't remember getting a Starbucks. And I go, Bri, dorky, you're in the wrong. It's in the wrong. It's not the right car. And it's just a matter of time, Henry. I'll call you sometime and go, hi, Henry. I can't get a hold of Ashley. Could you post my bail? And you'll be like, what'd you do? Oh, I tried to get into a car in the parking lot. And the cops are not going to believe me. They're going to go, yeah, you tried to break in and steal in case there was any Starbucks coffee left in that cup. We know you. Up against the car, right? Hands up, feet back and spread them. Yeah. And I'll go, well, yeah, so I'll point to the shunt, right? I'll go this. They won't believe me. They're patrolmen, right? They're not going to believe me. So my one call is going to be to you in Ecuador going, hey, they want, right? Can you bail me out, please? I don't mind being in jail. It's on my bucket list. I got to tell you, to be on that side of the bars after having put people there for so long, it'll be a bucket list thing, but I might have to call for bail one day. Who knows? All right, Henry.
Well, that's going to read and go, oh, he did it again.
Who did it again? And Rita will go, it's Brian. Don't take his call. He needs 3 days in the Huskow. Okay, so Henry, and I promise I'm going to not interrupt. Tell us about transitional radio. Right? Tell us, and about your show, Thinking Re-Envisioned. I can't wait for that. That's going to be a blast. How's it looking?
It's looking like it's going to work out pretty well. I mean, it's going to be kind of heady. It really is, and it's not going to be a lot of the. I'm going to try to do a little bit of the humor in it, but it's some serious stuff. And so, I have that's my big little glitch, I guess, the way to look at it. Is making humor out of something that's really serious that has to be taken serious. But doesn't have to always. So I'm going to work on that part.
Okay.
But it's going to be kind of heady, a lot different than what we do.
Sure.
When we get together, ours is everything but serious. And
no
I
charge.
kind of like this. A lot
You're
better.
welcome. I tell people all the time, you should hear Henry with a glass of Chianti in his hand. It's a different, right? It keeps me laughing. It's like talking to Lee Rowley. I just laugh constantly with some of this crap you pull, right? So that's the show. That's the show I want. John saying, hey, you better do this on videotape. Then I think the show should start off, right? Instead of the clock like I have. Candace reminds me that I set the wrong clock. Oh, 4 seconds left. I'm going to be over, Matt. I think we should have a video. And instead of and Darren wants to hear the gong. Let me hear the gong. Here's what I think,
Go
Henry.
for it.
We should have a show of a countdown clock. It's how much of the bottle of Chianti is left.
Oh,
You're
there
right.
we go.
Yeah, you just sip on down, right? Pop the cork, sip on down, and we'll know it's the end of the show when you're at the bottom of the bottle of wine. Hold on a second. Right now, Rita is going, Henry, that is the dumbest idea Brian has ever come up with. And he's come up with a boatload of them. But yeah, I think that should be, like I have an hourglass right up front here, right? So the hourglass, I'm liking this, John. The hourglass should be the bottle of Chianti.
Chianti chat.
The Chianti, yes, why not? Yeah. So when people tell you to put a cork in it, you go, oh, you know what the end of the show will be? Turning the Chianti upside down and dipping it in the ice bucket.
I love it.
I think it would be great. All right, so we're getting close, right? Well, you and I keep teasing transitional radio. It's probably by the end of the month, you would think.
Yes. Yeah. I'm hoping on the first of next month to kick it off and
Very cool.
Go whatever day of the week that happens to be.
Yeah, sure.
I should probably look at that and see what I'm on vacation. I mean, it's been really hard. Yeah, the first is on a Monday, so that would
there you
be
go.
no. Yeah, October 1st. That's it.
There you go.
Yeah. So I think that would be a perfect time to just kick it off. Would be on the 1st, and so we'll try to get it up and get schedules up there, and so that you can post what the schedules will be, and we can go from there. I think
sounds
that
great.
would just be fun.
As you know, because she's probably sitting right across the room from you, Rita goes, "This is a dangerous idea." No charge. And Darren says that's a wonderful sound. All right, we're going to go ahead and get out of here. Henry, as always, thanks for keeping me tethered. I often think,
my pleasure.
Ashley goes like, if you were a hot air, if you were filled with helium, which they could have filled my head with, to be honest with you, I got a huge hole in it. If you were filled with helium, you would just fly away. So thank you for being the tether, as you have been so many times in the past that holds me down. We're going to go ahead and get out of here. Henry, I'll have you say goodbye with me while you're in the show. Wayne, thank you very much. Wayne's absolutely a tether. I think at times I can hear Wayne roll his eyes at me, Henry. I think I can. I think I'm talking to him on the phone. I think I can hear him.
Oh, yeah.
I think I can hear him roll his eyes.
Yeah, that silence is because when he rolls his eyes, he can't talk. So,
It's like when Sue calls it the side eye, right? When I said something, it's just me, right? Wayne and I were talking the other day. I'm bionic now.
Yes.
With the brain shunt, I'm bionic. I have I got to figure if that's true. In about a month. Wayne says in about a month. All right. Candace says, drive nice. That's good advice for everyone. Henry, why don't we leave on that? Candace says, drive nice. John says, video journals with Brian and Henry. Oh, that should be a road show.
I love it.
Thelma and Louise. I mean, notwithstanding the cliff at the end, driving the car off. It's a beautiful car. All right. Good night, you all.
That might be cool, too.
You never can tell. All right, we're going to get out of here. Henry, thank you so very much. Everyone, thank you for joining us here at All Natural Being. We'll be back tomorrow morning, bright and early, for Bring Your Own Bold. And we'll be back here. Tomorrow is Lee Words Wednesdays. Lee Rowley from Sales Copy Academy will be on, and I'm sure he's going to talk about, we'll be talking about combat copy, but more how to create copy that just really is the definition of true cognition. He knows how to write it. We'll be talking about that tomorrow night, so we'll see you all then. Henry, as always, brother, thank you so much. We will see you soon. All right. Good night now.
Good night.
IPMNation.com.